putting in term limits to punish them, even though they'll just be replaced by someone else who will do the exact same thing, and shrinking the government, except for the military, let that keep growing, and directing all of this rage away from corporations, away from Wall Street, away from the war machine, into other things where it doesn't do any good, where it doesn't threaten anything, where it doesn't change anything. That's one obvious approach. The second approach that's pretty common, I think, is to do what I just spent the past 2 minutes doing. Critique the first approach. Most liberals, when the Republicans were running things in Washington, the liberal media outlets and websites spent most of their time talking about the crazy right-wingers. They still do. They still do. The Republicans have been completely voted out of power, but the people on the supposed other side still spend most of their time talking about the Republicans and the Tea Partiers and the Teabaggers and so forth. And mildly support sort of superficial gestures in the direction of changes that we need. But give a pass to the Democratic Party. Let anybody who's in the Democratic Party have a pass on really doing what's needed. And the third route, which obviously I'm going to claim is the better one, is not a middle way between these two, but it is to actually get serious about our government and to take it over and to run it. And I would outline 3 steps to start in this direction. Number 1 is to enforce the laws that we have on the books. Number 2, which cannot come before that one, is to create better laws with better activism and better approaches to doing it. And number 3 is to not be defeatist and go crawl under our beds or move to Canada or ask each other why we should bother and so forth. And, I've done this book tour. I started back in September, and some places I've gone, this hasn't been an issue at all, but a lot of places, at the end of my opening remarks, everybody raises their hand and says, yeah, but why shouldn't we all kill ourselves? Yeah, but we tried that and we haven't completely won yet, so why don't we, which is nonsense. That people wouldn't be here in the room if they didn't still care and still want to try. But, it never, ever was it like that for the years that I've been doing this peace and justice work until the second half of 2009. All of this defeatism hit, and I think this nonsensical, we elected a different president so everything will fix itself, damn it didn't, sort of thinking has to be set aside, and gladly, happily is being set aside now. But I had to sort of shift my book tour remarks from analysis and strategy and what should we do to being a public therapist and counseling people on their desperation and so forth, which I can't stand, just depresses me. So I'm not really going to do that, much of that tonight. You can read my book, which has a lot of it, and I'm going to pass something around. You can also go get this online or buy it, but pass some of these around. I have an article in the latest issue of a magazine called The Humanist Magazine that is nothing but pep talk. So you can assume that I conclusively persuade you that we have to and must and will enjoy working harder than ever in that article. And we can skip over that. So number 1, enforcing the laws that we have on the books. Every newspaper today and yesterday in this entire country will tell you that John Yoo and Jay Bybee, the torture lawyers, have been let off the hook. This is not true. They are not torture lawyers. They were never on a hook. There never was any hook. And we may be able to hold them accountable quite easily if we try a little bit. Why? Anybody have any idea why I would say they're not torture lawyers? Because these guys authorized aggressive war at the whim of any president and have the blood of over 1 million dead bodies on their hands. To call them torture lawyers is like calling Al Capone a tax cheat. You know, I know they nailed him on that, and we should nail them on torture if we can. But to make that the label that describes them, when that ought to be a footnote in what these people did, is obscene. Right? And the question that the president, long ago, President Obama publicly ordered the Justice Department never to prosecute these people. Right? That was not something we had to wait till this week to find out. Right? The whole question was whether this report was going to say they were guilty of misconduct and should be disbarred as lawyers or not. Right? And they released the early versions of the report and the commentary from you and Bybee, who in an unprecedented step were allowed to comment on the report about their misconduct, and the final conclusions that we should ignore what the report says and there really wasn't anything that amounted to misconduct. So the fraud is just there, open for all to see. And then we're told, well, that lets them off the hook. But as the report itself accurately and unavoidably says, it's actually up to the bar associations whether they're disbarred. Right? Well, it's also actually up to Congress whether Jay Bybee is impeached. It's up to Congress whether these people are subpoenaed and forced to testify. Imagine if President Nixon had hired some hack to put out a report that recommended against impeaching Richard Nixon. And then the Washington Post, after all that Watergate work, oh, damn, and had to put out an article on the front page that said Nixon off the hook. No, Congress, believe it or not, is actually a different institution from the Justice Department, which, you know, in Nixon's day was a different institution from the presidency, but now is a servant of the president. So it's not actually up to the guy who wrote this conclusion to the report to decide. It's up to us. So Senator Leahy is going to hold hearings on Friday. Congressman Conyers says he's going to hold hearings soon. But it's going to be very strange to watch these people try to hold hearings on you and Bybee's torture memos, and this is all about torture, war isn't even mentioned, without having you and Bybee there. Right? Because you'll recall during 2007 and 2008, congressional committees subpoenaed dozens of people in the executive branch, as we think of the entire government now. And we're told, no, I got to go golfing that day. I got to buy shoes. Go ahead without me. And never showed up. And in 2009, 2010, not a single one of those subpoenas reissued. And last April, when some of these torture memos came out, Senator Leahy asked Jay Bybee, who was John Yo's boss, who signed these memos, who's now a lifetime appeals court judge on the West Coast, would he mind coming in and talking to the Senate Judiciary Committee? And was told to go Cheney himself. And Senator Leahy said, I'm sorry I bothered you, Justice Bybee. And that was that. Right? Because they are afraid to subpoena anyone, much less impeach someone. And so what are they going to do? How are they going to hold hearings? It's going to be a matter of you and Bybee of their own will deciding that they should go in. Which seems pretty unlikely. They're going to have to be made some serious promises before they do that. Or of the Justice Department, and which means the president permitting them to be ordered to come in, which seems pretty unlikely. Does anybody know what inherent contempt means? Other than that feeling in your stomach when Cheney comes on the television? Nobody knows what inherent contempt is?